Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of this radical feminist book. It's been enlightening to see from their perspective, and it's very important for us to understand their philosophy entirely so that we can argue against them through a truthful and honest and accurate approach. Can't argue against something if you haven't fully understood it yet, like some charlatans do. Now, let's continue. These ideas are an affront to current orthodoxies of work and love and sex. They are an affront to the assumption that men are owed something by women. Okay, so men owed something by women. To the assumption that women owe men sex, affection, emotional labor, and domestic service. Okay. So, we must ask ourselves, do you owe a man sex? This is a very tense topic. From an Islamic perspective, yes. You go into marriage, the angel's are going to curse you, if you refuse him and he goes to bed angry. However, every relationship has a time where someone says, no, it's quite normal. After you get married, plenty of studies show things kind of taper off and smooth out. You're not going to have this rabid energy forever. And so, a woman has bodily sovereignty. She decides who gets to do what with her body. But when you're married, there should be a goal to keep your intimacy life in harmony. And if someone has withheld, then there's an emotional, psychological, some bond is being broken and they need to repair that right away to get things back on track. But also, there are different ways one can play if someone had a surgery, right? You are having postpartum depression from your baby, labor and delivery and all that. You're suffering from a disease, you have pauses, but there's other ways to show affection. So I would argue that it's not that women owe men sex in terms of someone buys you a cup of coffee, now all of a sudden you gotta go in the back. No, rather, when you marry, you're protecting your private parts and you're keeping yourself together with them in this union that is approved of, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't allow you to be a fornicator or an adulterer. So when you get married, now you can have all the fun you want, because how do I put it? In the Quran it says that the men can approach the women as they will. So position, the living room versus the bathroom, shower versus, you got a nice backyard, you want to go in the hammock, you name it. Harmonious, beautiful ways, as long as it's not sodomy, right? So, when you get married, you have rights with each other. And one of those rights is intimacy. So, you do kind of owe, if you're looking at the language raw. Not sure how it would be from an atheistic perspective, right? Because they have quite a different set of values. But ours is important. Now, affection. I see this a lot with the incels who whine on Twitter. You pay attention to these young men. The MGTOW guys like Sandman, MGTOW, that Pearly Things promotes, Pearly Scum. This is weird because these men beg for female attention and are whiny, and that's not how you're going to get a healthy, sane, hormonally balanced heterosexual woman who is spiritual to like you. Because a weak man who's whiny and begs for female affection is a red flag, and is quite scary because you see him as like a deviant rodent, mouse. Like he's a threat. There's just something slimy about him. Like, he comes off as like the Wormtail character in Harry Potter. That's the only thing I can think of at this moment. It's just like it's gross. It's really gross. when you like someone, you give affection in numerous ways. And I, as a woman, I demand affection from my man. So if I'm cooking, gives you a smack on the butt, uh, bites the back of your neck playfully while washing the dishes, I demand affection. Okay? That's why they're my husband. That's why I have selected them. My stag must give me affection. Now, I'm not saying he has to be an anaconda and be my shadow and just follow me around, but I demand that. So, when she phrases it as women owe men affection, well, a woman will want affection from her man. And if you look at some of the reasons why women cheat, they report emotional neglect. I don't know if he likes me. You know, he doesn't approach me anymore for intimacy. He doesn't think I'm beautiful because, you know, he'd rather watch some girls on OnlyFans than touch me. He'd rather play video games. Like, you hear these complaints from these women, and it damages their psyche. And then they seek out men who are going to give them temporary junk food attention to pump up their dopamine, and then ruin their relationship. So, affection is part of being in a relationship in marriage. However, if a man wants a mean girl, a cold queen, a cold ice queen, he likes he has a kink for being shamed. That's a very deviant man, and that's a toy, essentially, and he doesn't deserve breeding rights. He is just disposable. Emotional labor. That one is a very interesting phrase, because I hear the MGTOW morons say women are using men as emotional tampons, and then she says something towards them as emotional labor to deal with them. So, notice the language similarity. Domestic service. I mean, I've been paying attention a lot to what these gold diggers say, and some of them come off as a bit resentful for women who make their man food. Because these women, they exist, right? They help fund the maid cleaning services, right? You're down on your luck, you want to start a cleaning service, there's a way out for you. So economically, women who don't want to clean and they hire a maid, those women get to feed their families. You see what I'm saying? So there's a balance, right? The aristocracy class, with their mansions, you know, in the 17th century or whatever, employed people, and they were able to live, right? So there's a balance, I get it. But if you are middle class, lower middle class, you're going to need to tidy up around the home. You cannot live in filth. I remember seeing a crime story where it was so dirty in one woman's home, and they were so disgusting. The baby got poisoned. It was like a 7-month-old baby, and when investigators went to the home, there was just pure filth. And if you're gonna let your little cute baby exist in an environment like that, shame on you. You're not some, oh, I'm above it all queen. You're a dirty little hamster, and you need to do better. Okay? So, wash them damn dishes. Learn to make some rice and beans. I mean, cooking is wonderful. Feed your kids proper nutrition. Part of the problem that my mom had and my grandma had, they never cooked. I always had to eat somewhere else. I think that's part of the reason why I had stomach problems as a kid. Now I'm older, my kids watch me cook, we watch cooking channels together on YouTube, we watch Iron Chef, we have cookbooks, she's learning, mashallah, tabarakallah. But if you're you are just wanting to eat at takeout all the time, there's a bit of arrogance there, like, cook something. That's why I love expanding my skill set. We got pastries, we got Chinese food, Japanese food, Mexican, American Southern food, Italian, mashallah. Like, I love just being in the kitchen like my laboratory. And I didn't grow up with anyone teaching me how to cook. I literally had to learn by my own and going in the restaurant industry. So, when she says, you know, women owe men domestic service, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your children, you hamster. if you're just working an average job and you're not some woman making $200,000 a year and can afford a maid service, clean up after yourself. I noticed that the women who do have maid services, their kids, they put popcorn like everywhere. They color on the walls. Like, they have less respect for cleaning up because the maid does it and their kids are little snot-nosed brats making messes, not cleaning up after yourself. Whereas when women who do clean up after themselves, they tell their kids like, you're not making that mess, knock it off, clean it up. Like, when we were little, we had to put our toys back each time we played. Play with them, put them back. Some people, you can just leave them out for days. You got this over there, this over that. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, I've seen some women be completely dirty. And you gotta be careful of dirty people because bed bugs, we call those bugs chinches. It's just cockroaches. It's sick. Clean up after yourself. You got ants, whatever, ew. So, be careful when a feminist is like, oh, women don't owe men domestic labor. I get it in Islam. Some argued, haven't looked much into it, that a woman doesn't have to necessarily cook and clean. That it's okay for her to have a maid service. Now, yes, maid services provide jobs in the economy. But if you cannot afford a maid, you gotta do it. Just freaking do it. Teamwork with him. If you can't do it all yourself, it's hard for you. You get a good man. He's like, okay, this time I'll clean the bathroom, and then you do it this time. Work it out. A good man will work with you. Don't marry the dictator who wants you to, if he pisses on the floor, he wants you to get on your knees and wipe it up with a towel. Don't get a piggish guy like that. If you want someone who's going to help you more in that way, make sure that you ask him, talk to him, right? There's ways to work on this. These assumptions are disturbed when women, girls, and children come together to insist that, in fact, powerful men are not automatically entitled to have access to the bodies of others. Now, I get automatically entitled. I see the gray area of what she's getting at here. But I would argue that when you get married, part of the joy of marriage in an Islamic fashion is that now you get to enjoy each other. And you're not going to be punished for that. When you are single, you cannot have intimacy with anyone you are not married to. So now that you're married, you get to unleash. You get to have a lot of fun. And so it's very important for women to remember that. Very important for women to remember that. So, you're entitled to his body, he's entitled to yours, but that doesn't mean you get to abuse and transgress and harm one another. There's beauty in it. It depends on how you phrase it. So I see where she's trying to come off, but I also see where she's a little bit giving some bad advice here. And when a woman finally finds herself able to question whether she really owes men anything at all, whether she might be the one that's owed something by the world, that is an act of resistance. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. Does she owe men anything at all? And then she turns around and says that the world owes her something because she's a woman. No. You owe men, men owe you. Okay, you work with each other, you're a bridge. You are this net for your children. You owe each other kindness, decency, affection, respect, to help them become a better person. You have all these wonderful things you owe one another based on your position. You cannot just... Okay, so how do I put this? if she wants to be a single woman, celibate, and childless, and living in a commune of lesbians or disenfranchised women, those people living on that commune are going to owe the group something. No matter which position you're in, at work you owe your boss something. Your on-timeness, your honesty, your accuracy. You owe someone something everywhere you go. You cannot float around being entirely selfish. You owe yourself something, you owe your community something, you owe Allah everything, that you have His rights. You have duties and responsibilities and accountability in so many different facets of life. And so women do owe men chastity, loyalty, peace. I say you do owe your man peace if he's earned it. That's why you have to be so careful who you get along with. And if you've made a mistake with bad men, know that there is good men, and the good men deserve to be treated better than the bad men. Okay? So the world doesn't owe you anything, because the world is raw and full of death. For the majority of creatures on this earth, it is a life and death game every day. The bird must wake up to find its bugs. The tiger must hunt. The polar bear must swim. The wildebeest must cross the Nile and avoid getting... Wait. I don't know if the wildebeest are up that far. Okay, let's put it this way. The wildebeest must cross the river where the crocodiles are at, and during their mass migration, there's no guarantee that all of them are going to get across. Crocodile got to eat. Wildebeest got to cross. Someone's going to die. Someone's not. Earth is filled with life and death. Lizards eating bugs. Bugs eating other bugs. Sharks eating other fish. It's just intense. So as a woman, you're not specifically going to exist in this perfect realm where you owe nobody nothing and they all owe you. No. That's a very abusive type of relationship. Very abusive. Let me know what you think, because I think that's a very negative thing. You know? Yes, I get the point of access to the bodies is if you consent, if you want it. Right? No one can commit rape against you. We know that. But when you get married, you are now within the perfect union, and you're not going to get sin for enjoying each other. So enjoy each other. Work through your difficult moments. Right? Learn how to talk to one another. Learn how to be charismatic, romantic, chivalrous, playful in that way. You know, have some allure, some zestiness, something, some spice. But don't start thinking like, hey, I gotta just be rigid and cold and you gotta provide. It's very hard to keep that going for a while. You know, after a year, you gotta wake up and realize someone can come and steal your man away. That's not good, right? Very interesting points here. Let me know what you think. By the way, if you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.